What's up guys, and welcome back to another video talking about Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. And for today's video, to begin, we're going to have a little bit of a throwback to basically this time last year, a year and a week ago actually. On the 5th of June 2016, I put up a video called Pokemon Sun and Moon No More Gyms. And I was talking about the fact that possibly in Pokemon Sun and Moon that there weren't going to be any more gyms, because up to that point, of course, we had gyms in every single main series Pokemon game, and then all of a sudden, it looked like, to me at least, that we possibly might not be having them, because there were the areas, there were big open areas in each town. It just didn't seem like there were actually any gyms on the map, and I was right. The like-dislike ratio obviously shows how people thought I was wrong at the time, and it's just, I love this video so much. It just got so much discussion. I mean, a lot of discussion was just people saying, oh, you're an idiot, it's never going to happen, oh, why would they do that, etc. But it was discussion nonetheless. So today I present you a video called Gyms Are Back. Ha ha ha, yes, the opposite. So Sun and Moon, no more gyms. Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, gyms are back. So I'm going to talk about the possibility that while Sun and Moon rather, these games are going to keep getting mixed up. Sun and Moon gave us trials, island trials, and that was cool, it was different, but I feel like these games, Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, might bring gyms back into the fold, so we're going to look at that today. But before we jump into sort of the full extent of the video, we're going to look at two specific things first that will keep cropping up over these videos. One of them is a large space on the Alola map, and one of them is this little pile of what looks to be timber beams and, you know, just basically just timber beams and building materials. And we're going to see a lot of these sort of areas, either empty areas or the timber beams across this video, so of course keep your eyes out for them. And, you know, it's sort of just, it's an illustration of areas that are similar to each other and have some form of link. So we're going to look at, as the No More Gyms video did, these open areas on the Alola map. So we saw these, or I saw these, and well, other people did too, when we first saw the map of Alola, and there were big open spaces in a few towns and areas, and we were like, what the hell is this? And my speculation back at the time was, aha, they're areas where we're going to be able to build gyms in the post-game. Obviously we didn't get to build gyms in the post-game in Sun and Moon, but they may still be linked to gyms, because of course those areas were in the game and they had literally no purpose at all, nothing at all. But one thing we did learn about in the game is that towards the end of it, we work at, you know, at least Professor Kukui works to set up a Pokemon League with an Elite Four, which of course we then challenge. But what does a Pokemon League need? It needs gyms, because that's how the sort of the structure works. They were putting a Pokemon League in place because they were the last region not to have one, basically, and it makes sense that the gyms would then be put in the same place, because that's how it works. You've got to battle each gym to up your power level before you can actually challenge the Pokemon League. Otherwise you'd have new trainers and people that weren't really ready for the challenge turning up to the Pokemon League and wasting the Elite Four's time, basically. And it works the same way in the anime. You have to have a certain number of badges to be able to challenge the league, everything like that, or enter the competition it is in the anime. You guys get the idea. So possibly after the Pokemon League was set up, they might have thought, well, we need gyms as well, really, because otherwise, you know, again, we're going to have all these new trainers or trainers that aren't quite ready for the challenge turning up. We need some way for them to prove themselves, so gyms would be an ideal way. So Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon is obviously not a sequel or a follow-on from Sun and Moon that we know of, but it seems to be built or based in a similar universe, Ultra Universe I'm going to call it, and maybe in this Ultraverse, there's slightly more advanced. You know, they're a few years ahead, so they already have this Pokemon League set up at the point, because there's no point us going into Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon having the same thing and Professor Kukui be like, we're setting up a Pokemon League, look at that. We'd be like, yes, seen before, thank you very much, okay, thank you. So it just wouldn't make much sense. So it would make more sense in my video at least, that the gyms were already made when we start on our journey. So let's jump in and have a look what we got. So we're starting off on Melee Island, and we have this big open area in the main city here. You can see this, what looks to be like a courtyard, and obviously here's an image from the game. You can see it's just a wall-off area. There are Machamps there, indicating that maybe it's related to building, because that's what we usually see the champs doing. So maybe that links in there, but really there's nothing else in this courtyard. It's empty. I'm not sure if the guy standing next to the player character actually says anything relevant, but that's the idea there. It's just stood here, and this is the only instance of this large area on Melee Island, for the moment at least, that we know of. So then we move on to Akala Island, and we have the first city we come to, the first town we come to. Again, there's a large open space next to the Pokemon Center, about the size of a building again. And you can see here, that pile of timber, or similar, is sitting back there, at the back there, just in an large open space. And this is what I'm talking about when I say linked items. So the open spaces indicate an area where a building can go, and the timber indicates, you know, there is a planned building there in the future, but obviously not currently. So they might be all tied together in that fashion. Moving on to further areas in Akala, we then move up, and the next area is Royale Avenue. Now this does not have a large area present, there's no big square area for a building to be made. However, there is this pile of timbers here. You can see right next to, I think, the I can't remember the name of it now, the Malasada place, shop, whatever. But there's a bunch of timbers there. So why are they there? You know, is there any reason for them to be there? Are they just planning on expanding the Malasada shop? Or because these timber areas are often seen with the large open building spots, maybe there's building planned near Royale Avenue in terms of where they can actually put a gym here. You could put it in the centre, I suppose, or have the path extend past the Malasada shop to a building down there, and that would make more sense. The last slot we then have on Akala Island is, of course, the bottom sort of town, the final town we come to on our journey, usually at least. And you can see in the top right of the town there is another open area, and once again this pile of timbers stacked up there, indicating building work is to commence at some point, which is interesting to say the least. We then move on further to Alola Island, and the first obvious space for building here is in the first town. You can see nice big area, nice open building spot where it's literally like a 2x3 area and there's one building missing. And of course in the centre you can see again the building materials, indicating that, you know, a building is to be built or is planned to be built at some point there. Moving then further on, we have, this one's a bit of a tenuous one, but I can't remember the name of it now, but basically Tapu Village, here it is there, where you sort of, you know, then eventually go to see the Pokemon League. We have this spot here, you can see it on the map is like a concrete square, whereas actually in game it is a walled off piece of grass. So this seems to be the most likely extra spot for one, yeah, obviously along with the others, but there's no indication, there's no building materials, there's nothing along those lines, but it does look like a wide open area. It could be ruins, of course, because it's like a ruined village basically, but at the same time they could end up building it. It's a nice big square there, why not build in there? So that's the Tapu Village for you. And moving on to the next one, we have again a similarly tenuous one because it's not actually in any town at all. It's over here on Route 15 on the middle of this island in the centre. We have this big open concrete square once more, no building materials this time, but it's a big concrete square. Why the hell is it in the middle of Route 15, and why is it not even related or mentioned or anything in the games? Why is it there? So maybe they would end up building a gym like out on the route, and it should be a special gym that's not actually part of the town. Possible, who knows? And then we move on to the final gem, final area I suppose I should so say, which is of course on Pony Island, or Pony Island, I can't remember what it's called, and obviously the floating village here. There is one platform across from the Pokemon Center that's empty, and you can see, of course, building materials sat on the centre of them, indicating a building to be built. So those are our eight gyms, 8 areas. But of course, if we're going to have gyms, we've got to have gym leaders as well, and what people could be the gym leaders of Alola? Well, of course we have the trial captains. Why the hell would they not be the gym leaders? It makes a lot of sense as well. All the trial captains in Sun and Moon are slightly older, sort of teenagers, okay? They're people that have completed the island challenge and then moved on to become the trial captain. Whereas gym leaders are usually adults, you know, 1 or 2 exceptions, possibly like Flannery, who's like early 20s probably, but generally they are adults. And of course, if we're thinking that Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon are sort of based a few years relative to Sun and Moon, so the Pokemon League and all the gyms have been set up at this point, of course the trial captains would be about in their early 20s, maybe a bit older, so they would be the perfect candidates to be the gym leaders. So who would fit where, and have we got enough basically? So of course, Melee Island, yeah, there is literally no discussion. Obviously Alima would be the trial or the gym leader here, especially in the same city, makes a lot of sense. Moving on to the first city or first town on Akala Island, Lana would fit best here because she's closest, you know, Brooklyn Hill is the closest here, and of course there is this aquarium water-like hotel right next to it. She's a water-type gym leader, water-type trial captain, etc. Moving down to Royale Avenue, I think of course Kiawe fits best here. It's a close vicinity to Wayla Volcano, so it makes sense you just come down and you know, fit in there. And I think the theme works pretty well for him as well. He's like a fiery personality, and of course we have the Battle Royale, which of course is a pretty fiery game mode. And of course the final then gym area on Alola Island would probably be fit by Mallow because she is a trial captain on Alola Island, makes a load of sense, and she's sort of related to the area, I suppose you could say. We know she knows Olivia, so it makes a lot of sense that she might end up being here, but she's not directly linked, of course. It's possible she could be the trial with the gym leader here. Then moving on to Alola Island, of course, the next one we have is in this first town. No one is really near it in terms of trial captains. The nearest is Sophocles, so I guess if he came down the mountain, that would make more sense there, and he could be the gym leader in this town. Whether the gym could end up being on top of the mountain as well next to the observatory, it's possible, but I don't think it's likely because you'd have a gym and observatory, it would just be a bit stacked on top of the mountain, but it's possible that Sophocles does end up being the gym leader here. And then of course we have the other three areas. Now these are a bit trickier because we only have 2 trial captains left. Of course we have Acerola or Acerola, and of course the mysterious trial captain we have Mina. So where do they go? We've only got 2 left and we've got 3 spots. Well, Acerola will probably stay on the line because she's got of course the I guess it's the orphanage, sort of similar thing there. So she's going to be there, so she's going to get one of the 2. But of course Mia makes a lot of sense to put on Pony Island because she is there anyway, that's her trial area. So it makes a lot of sense that she would end up being the one on the floating town. It does make a lot of sense because of course she's not a water type gym leader, or trial captain, but she could still fit there because of course she's on the island. So at least Acerola on one of the 2 spots. So either one I think could work because Tapu Village is pretty close, as well as the Route 15 area. So obviously she could take one, but who's going to take the other one? Well, that's where we lose out because we haven't got any more trial captains left. There are a few possibilities we could have. I know of course there are a few other characters in the game that could possibly do it. But we got Molane, so of course Molane did his trials with Professor Kukui, so he's a fair bit older, but he could definitely jump on and end up being a gym leader again because he was a steel type. He was actually the trial captain before Sophocles, so maybe he comes back and just sort of takes up his mantle again. One possibility there. Or we could see another trial captain, so maybe a mysterious trial captain we never actually saw in Sun and Moon, maybe takes up the mantle, something like that. It's possible something comes along there, but generally that's how we could fit it out. But of course looking at typings would be one thing. That would leave our gyms as being normal, water, fire, grass, electric, ghost, fairy, and then one other possibly steel, which isn't a huge sort of range of types. But if you then move on to think about the Elite Four, because of course they would still be a thing in these games, and looking at the Elite Four from Sun and Moon, of course we have Hala, first Elite Four member, Olivia, second one, Acerola obviously takes up the third one because her father refuses to or doesn't want to, and then the final one is taken up by Kahili, which of course she is a golfer, so Kahili could end up being one of the gym leaders here, but she doesn't really have an area or a gym near her that could possibly be there, so she might stay on the Elite Four. It's fair to say Hala's going to stay on the Elite Four, and probably Olivia too, because they are sort of the Kahunas, and it makes sense for the Kahunas to be the Elite Four members. And of course, if we're going to assume Acerola is a gym leader, then that means her father Nanu does need to take up the mantle of Elite Four in the games for that to make much sense. So we'd have those gym types, and then you get fighting, rock, dark, and flying as the Elite Four members, which would be pretty good. And of course then the champion, of course generally it'd probably be Professor Kukui, I suppose, again, or you could have a different rival who it could be. That would work out pretty well. And of course you can have the challenge function again return, so any of the gym leaders could possibly challenge you, which would be pretty interesting and pretty cool. Any of the Elite Four members possibly could challenge you as well, maybe not because you've just beaten them, but you guys get the idea there. You could expand it like that. And of course one other person I shall mention before before I will end up this video, because there is someone else in the game. Because looking at challenges for the Pokemon League, you have Faber, probably not going to be a gym leader. Same with Gladion. Hapu, of course. Don't forget Hapu. Actually, she is a trial cat. Well, she's a Kahuna, so she could definitely come and take up a mantle of being one of the Elite Four members as well, because otherwise she'd have no purpose in the game. So you could see her instead of Kahili, and Kahili be a gym leader, and it could fit out like that. Or she could take over from Acerola if Nanu is really not going to return to the league, so that's one possibility there. How, of course, is not going to be a gym leader, neither is Kukui. Malane we've talked about, Primaria, no. We have, of course, Ryuki, who is the dragon type He's a young child. We don't know much about him actually. He's just Ryuki, non-player character, specialising in dragon types. He's travelled to Alola from another region beyond the sea in order to spread his fame. So he's possible he could become a gym leader, or of course just a challenge, I suppose, because it's just in the games. Why not reuse him? So it's possible he could have come over to Alola a few years ago when they were building the Pokemon League and end up, taking on a gym leader title. That's one possibility. We'll have to see how it fleshes out. Of course, they might not even get gyms back in the game, so we'll have to see how it goes. But let me know what you think down below in the comment section. Of course, always. Do you think gyms possibly will come back in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon? Do you think basically trials might be a bit boring to actually see again for another game? Because they weren't amazingly inventive to begin with. So do you think people maybe would welcome gyms back, and that's why they might go towards doing gyms instead of trials again? And of course, let me know what you'd like to see in terms of gym leaders and Lat Fool members if this does become a thing. But that's going to be it for me for today, so I shall see you next time. Thank you for watching. Goodbye, my friends.